A few days ago, Undertale celebrated its 4-year anniversary of release, while I celebrated my 1-week anniversary of having played it for the first time. Sans' semi-inclusion in Smash being the cause of me trying it out. And well, after playing it, I honestly regret taking so long to do so, because I really love it. It's a fantastic game, but why'd I take so long to play it? I'm not one to skip out on a game and hate on it just because it's popular. I gave Five Nights at Freddy's a try in its heyday. I even gave Fortnite a try for a couple weeks. So what was the deal with Undertale? And the simple answer is, I just wasn't a fan of turn-based combat. And I was especially turned off by it as an outsider because it was one of those games where people would say, I don't like RPGs or turn-based combat, but I love Undertale, which is something similar people said about Persona 5, which I also could not get into no matter how much of an honest chance I gave it. Not at all saying I hate Persona or any other RPGs I'm about to list, it's just a gameplay style I personally can't get into. So, to any of my fans who also don't like RPG gameplay or turn-based combat, so much to the point where even Persona, Pokemon, Mario & Luigi, or Final Fantasy doesn't interest you at all, play Undertale. And I guess I should explain why. I'll start with gameplay since we're on the topic, and because it's the most important thing to me when I look for a game to play. The gameplay in Undertale may look like your typical RPG at first. You've got your overworld little pixelated characters walking around slowly, some occasional menu navigation with shopping and your inventory. But that's about where the similarities to other RPGs ends. The world is full of different interactable stuff that changes depending on what you do in the story. Characters will have different dialogue, signs will say different things, and you can even use stuff from side missions to help you in your main adventure. For example, there's this snowman who wants you to take a piece of him around the world, so he can travel because he can't move on his own. But instead of doing that, you could always just eat the snowman piece to heal yourself if you ever need it. But the game's battle system is where things really switch up, as menu navigation is kept to a minimum. The only items you'll have or need to worry about in combat are healing items, and you only have one type of attack, so you don't need to stress about enemy types, stats, dizzying, confused, or stun effects. Nothing like that. And when the time comes for you to attack, I'd only classify the combat as half turn-based. While you do take turns attacking with your enemy, it doesn't stop you from doing anything when it's your enemy's turn. The game changes to a bullet hell or even a semi-platformer in some fights. And just like the story, some of your enemy's attacks may even change depending on your choices. What I mean by that is, you don't always have to fight. You can just talk and hang out with your enemies during battle, or even show them mercy. This mechanic brings us right back around to the story. Like I said, your actions have consequences in this game, and they can take you down one of 3 paths. The neutral route, which is where most people go on their first blind playthrough of the game, the pacifist route, and the genocide route. Down the neutral path, you'll likely kill some enemies like you would any other RPG, but then you'll start to get used to the game's sparing and mercy mechanic. Then you'll slowly start to realize any mistakes and choices you have made, and have to deal with the repercussions of them. Then of course, because of the guilt, next you'll try the pacifist route. Not killing anyone, not killing monsters, not killing bosses. This will get you lots of extended story pieces and stuff to do on the side, as well as the game's quote-unquote true ending. I found it to be pretty fun, and it makes you feel good about yourself, but even when you complete that, there will always be that looming curiosity of what the genocide route is like. It's the path where you kill every last boss and monster imaginable. And trust me, that path will make you feel really bad. The game knows your curiosity. It's aware of how you're playing it just to play it. The game is constantly aware of all the different paths you take, how many times you replay, how many times you reset, how you abuse the save system. And that type of fourth wall awareness isn't just used for Psycho Mantis ripoff Doki Doki shock value blah either. It plays a very prominent and major role in the story. I know I haven't really detailed the story much thus far, but I can't really give any details without spoiling a ton of stuff. It's just that interesting. I want to keep it a surprise, and you have to see it for yourself. I guess to summarize it, monsters and humans had a war, monsters got pushed underground but want to peacefully return to the surface many years later, and when you accidentally stumble into the underground, you have to decide whether or not you want to help them accomplish this. But the story, of course, wouldn't be as interesting without the game's colorful cast of characters. The first character you meet is Flowey the Flower, and it's no secret since you learn pretty early on that he's not a nice dude. In fact, he's a pretty overpowered monster. But he's quickly shoved aside by Toriel, a kind and overprotective mother figure. She guides the player early on through the ruins in the game's tutorial. See what they did there? But eventually you'll leave her and venture out into the monster underground world. You'll meet tons of friendly and unfriendly faces like the game's general enemies, which actually all have their own distinct personalities and stories. Except Jerry. Jerry's the worst. You'll even get to know the game's bosses as well, like the goofy but prideful skeleton Papyrus, the tough but friendly Undyne, the anxious but dorky Alphys, the show-stealing Mettaton, the intimidating but fluffy Asgore, and of course you're all waiting for me to say it, Sans the Skeleton, the funny meme man you all know about. But believe it or not, despite his meme status, Sans has got to be the most interesting character in this entire game, like unironically. I don't want to spoil too much, so if you're a fan of Gravity Falls, here's a decent comparison. If Flowey is Bill Cipher, then Sans is Grunkle Stan. As in, yeah, he's a goofy jokester who rarely takes things seriously, but it's pretty clear that there's more to him than what it seems, and that he may know what's going on despite not knowing what to do about it. Just call him Grunkle Sans. There's a reason so many people unironically love him and would want him in Smash. I guarantee that if you play this game, he will come out as your favorite, or at the very least in your top 3 favorites. Another aspect that brings all these characters to life is the game's own presentation and sound design. Each character and monster has their own unique designs, personality, and sounds that are used when they're speaking in the dialogue box. I'm pretty sure you're all aware of, maybe it's the way that you're dressed. Everything when it comes to sound design is fantastic in this game. Attacking an enemy leaves a satisfying crunch, sparing an enemy leaves a satisfying bloop, and don't even get me started on the music. If you're like me, chances are that the most you've heard of this game's soundtrack is the first 5 seconds of Megalovania. Well, go listen to the rest, and then go listen to the rest of the game's soundtrack. You've already been hearing plenty of it in this video. But overall, Undertale was a game that definitely surprised me, and it shows you that you shouldn't hate things just because they're popular. I mean, in my specific case, it was because I don't usually like RPGs and stuff, but then that also shows that you should not be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone every once in a while. So once again, if you're like me and aren't fond of RPGs to the point where even Persona, Pokemon, Mario and Luigi, and Final Fantasy couldn't grasp you, then go play Undertale. Leopold the Brave, out.